Star Trek Prodigy Supernova, in keeping with its namesake, is a kid-focused take on the Star Trek universe. Much like the animated series upon which it is based, it provides an accessible entry point to a younger audience into the expansive Star Trek series. Featuring the full voice cast of the show, including Kate Mulgrew reprising her role as a hologram of Catherine Janeway, Supernova feels very much in the same tone as Star Trek Prodigy itself. As a game, Supernova nails exactly what it's going for, but rarely goes above and beyond. As a result, it harkens back to an age of regular lower-budget game tie-ins that, while often rough around the edges, did carry with them a fair bit of charm. For those completely unfamiliar with the show, Star Trek Prodigy tells the story of a group of young escaped prisoners who find freedom on a stolen Federation starship called the Protostar. The ship itself is a Starfleet training vessel where the young crew ultimately are taught the values of Starfleet and the Federation as they attempt to escape their former captors. Supernova takes place during the first season of the show, so there isn't too much backstory to catch up on. The story is accessible to anyone, however, a working knowledge of Star Trek Prodigy will certainly make it more enjoyable. An understanding of the greater Star Trek universe is not needed in the slightest, and only serves to provide light chuckles when a character references various species passingly in dialogue. Much of this feels more like a Mad Lib, with Star Trek names inserted rather than meaningful dialogue, but where else are you gonna find a reference to the Xindi outside of Season 3 of Star Trek Enterprise? So I'll give it a pass. You play as Dal and Gwyn, either by alternating between them or cooperatively in local multiplayer. Levels play out across a series of linear stages on one of 3 different planets. While the path through each stage is generally straightforward, with little need to backtrack, plenty of hidden collectibles and unlockables are strewn throughout. You'll also collect breakable crystals as you go that can be traded in for upgrades back on the Protostar. These upgrades are purchased from other members of your crew, who must first be rescued before you'll have access to their upgrades. Rescued crew members can also aid you in combat. After you've dealt enough damage, the unique ability of whatever crew member you have assigned to your character will kick in. Combat in general, however, is probably the weakest aspect of Supernova. The controls often feel clunky, with dashes used for dodging attacks taking a moment too long to register. Enemy unit types are also limited, and combat encounters tend to feel repetitive very quickly. Puzzle solving, on the other hand, stands out as a strength. Many of these deal with manipulating the flow of energy through various conduits, but almost every stage introduces some new mechanic for how you're able to do this. Later puzzles, though not too baffling, become genuinely expansive and require both characters working in tandem to solve. Presentation on a whole is reasonably good for what is obviously a limited budget. Despite each planet being used repeatedly, individual levels look somewhat distinct, and the underlying art blends fantastically with the style of Star Trek Prodigy. Sound design is a bit less impressive. While the game is fully voiced, dialogue subtitles are often entirely wrong, likely due to actors improvising on the given script. The sound mix by default also places the dialogue and sound so far above the music that for the first couple stages, I didn't think there was any. I'd recommend leaving the music at 10, but turning sound and voices down to about 6. Star Trek Prodigy Supernova is a straightforward and easy-to-understand adventure game that does its job of being approachable for a younger audience. The inclusion of optional co-op multiplayer locally on a single system earns it some bonus points for being playable with friends, siblings, or parents. Fans of the series will also find plenty to enjoy from the familiar characters who are well represented here. While combat can get a little repetitive, the puzzles are genuinely inventive. Ultimately, whether a Trekkie or not, Supernova provides a reasonably solid experience with fun multiplayer that is approachable for everyone. This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.